it's Linda from Lányos Handmade. You'll have to excuse the lighting. I've got the lights off because it's so stinking hot in here, and I've got a fan going, but I don't think you can hear it in the background, so I don't think it'll bother you very much. And today we have another Marathon Society so long for you. Everybody is going to be doing back to school kind of things, so it's just in time for you to get ready for back to school or back to university or whatever you need. So make sure you catch everybody's videos. We've got all sorts of a variety of patterns to show you. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be demonstrating the Callisto case from Cork and Copper Designs. This one comes in 2 sizes and it's free in her Facebook group. I use mine for flash drives. You can use it for makeup. You know, you could use it for pens and pencils. I think the bigger size is really good for pens and pencils and things like that. Pencil crayons, you know, markers. And I'm also going to be doing the Lányos Luxe laptop case. That's this one. Between the videos that are already out there on my channel and the pattern, you can learn how to stick on a shoulder strap or handles or various pockets. This one here just has one pocket and the handles, so that's what I'll be demonstrating today. And but there are other ones that show the shoulder strap and things like that. This pattern is from Lányos Handmade, and they're giving all the money for the sale of this pattern to the ALS Society for patient care and research. Now the materials I used, I'll leave the links below. This was a vinyl from THCG Supply, and the hardware was from RC Threadcraft. And the hardware here was from RC Threadcraft, and the waterproof canvas was from my fabric dresser. So I guess let's get started. Maybe I'll start with this one first. Remember, this is the small one I'm making. In the pattern, there's also a bigger one. I think it's about twice the size of this one. Okay, so let's get this Callisto case made, and this is the way it's sewn together. But first we have to stick the zipper tape on. I've taken these apart, even though every time I do, I wonder how the heck I'm going to get them back on again. And we line them up nicely here, just right along the edge. Those clips are bothering me because they're upside down, and that makes that makes no sense at all. Now, if your tape is too wobbly, before you clip it on here, you can press the tape only. Don't press the teeth because they might be plastic and it might damage the teeth. And we shall put this down. You notice I checked if I had right side down because the right sides are supposed to be together. And those are clipped. And then after, let's sew them down. And after we'll bend them this way and top stitch it. But I'll show you what it looks like sewn down first. Okay, I've got my zipper sewed on both sides. You might notice my walking foot threw me to the right for some strange reason when I started out. So that was a bit of a surprise. So I'm going to fold these over and top stitch now. Hope I'm not shaking the, I probably am, camera. And then after I can top stitch here. Hopefully my foot won't throw me again. So I'm just going to press these down and clip them to hold them. And then I can top stitch along this side and this side too. It's a very thick vinyl, so I'm going to have to press it out really good with my fingers. And then after I top stitch, I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, so I've sewed it on and I've top stitched it down. Now I can stick on my decorative strips here. I might use some double-sided tape to hold it down, but they just follow along here, along the edge. And we sew down. I'm going to get a clip so I can hold this while I talk. Now in the pattern, she uses raw edge material, and I didn't have anything that I really liked. So what I'm going to do is use this fabric. And as you can see, I cut it This would be 1 inch wider than what she asked for, because if it was raw edge, it would just be like that. But I need a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch there to fold it under, so it makes a nice clean edge on this raw edge material. So I'm just going to stick this on to show you. I might put some double-sided tape down so that it holds it down the center. But as I'm talking here, let's do this. So what we do is go down one side and then go down the other side. And then that'll make it have a nice design. Okay, couple of things. I found this bump here. I found out why my walking foot, it starts off at this low level and then jumps up to the high level, and it was making it grab. But this looks pretty good, and this looks pretty good, and I ran out of thread. So bobbin, right? So what I do is I pull it through to this side, even if I have to come back a bit, and I tie it off, even if I have to do it one more stitch. Tie it off really good. If you want to, you can even put a spot of glue on it so the knot doesn't come loose. And then when I start sewing again, I'm going to start right from that point and keep on going, and make sure I pull the threads through here again at the beginning of my other stitch so that it gets tied off nicely. So I'm just going to finish this top stitching, and then after we can put on our zipper pull, which is a little elephant, and it's really cute. Okay, so I fixed up the side, this one, and I tied knots and glued it together. Now I have to go like this and put my zipper on. I've got this little elephant pull, and I'm so used to using my zipper jig that I don't have the faintest idea how I'm going to do this. I wonder what side, because I know I cut this. When I cut this, was it even? Yep, so it should work. Let's get one side started here and see. Ooh, it worked. Not bad at all. Okay, let's squish this together a little bit, just so I can see. I like to put this together. It's not going to go together. It would be nice if it did, because... Okay, I'm going to leave it in the middle. I'm going to center it with the back here. I should have stuck a notch in it or something. Let's move it this way. Find the center. Just a teeny tiny little notch where the center is. Same with this side. Teeny tiny little notch where the center is. Okay, so now that we've got the notches in there, we see where they're supposed to go, right? Did I have one on this side? Yes, I did. Okay, so let's line this up and clip it, because that's where we want it to be. And we'll sew the zipper shut when we come through here. All poofy with air. Okay, so I'm going to sew here, and I'm going to sew here just to baste, because that messy end is going to be covered up with sort of binding here that we're going to sew on. She also says you can sew down here, but I'm real cautious with all I have is black, and I don't want to sew a black line down here. It's okay if it's up here because it's bordering just like this, but I don't want to do one out in the blue. So I'm just going to sew across here, and then we'll come back and put these pieces on, and then I think we'll be finished. Okay, like I said, I sewed down the side here, just basted it. I didn't have any problems sewing over this zipper. It's a real nice zipper. And I'm all set to go. I noticed there's a lot of cat hair in here. Sorry. So I put on a label. No charge for the cat hair. So let's snip this off. Watch it go flying. And let's snip this off. And these are marked with the center. Big long threads, we don't need those. These are terrible scissors because I use them for cutting zippers. Come on. And look at all the threads. So, I'm going to get some double-sided tape because it's going to be easier with that. Look at this, it's still sticking out. And we'll put this nicely here. Fold it over. Get some clips. It's going to be pretty thick in the middle there, so go slow. And I'm going to sew across here. Let's do the same for this one. Okay, when I sew across here, I'm going to backstitch and do some knots on the other side and glue the knots so that nothing falls out. And I'm liking that zipper. So I'm going to sew down here. And that's it. Okay, finished. I sewed across, I did my knots, I stuck a little dot of glue on them. I found a red pen that I could do. I mean, you don't usually have red edge paint. Well, some people do, but I don't. So I found a red felt pen. It was for drawing on fabric. And since this is vinyl, it was easy just to do the edges so they aren't white to show. They're red. And so that was lucky. And here's our little case, all done. So our next project is the laptop cover. So I'm going to go get that all sorted out. Okay, so to start sewing our Luxe laptop case, first we need to do the handles. If you want handles, I'm going to put handles on mine. I have pressed in the folds that you're supposed to have, one in the center and then two here. And it's going to go together like this, so it's going to be really thick. But to make the ends nice, we want to sew the ends closed. So let's clip this down on both sides. And I'm going to sew down here and down here, and then after we can turn it back again and it'll have nice finished ends. I'll do it on both pieces. Okay, now they look like funny little dragon boats or something. I'm going to trim this down, both sides, and then turn it back. I even get my little pokey thing and poke out the corners. Now we refold it again. It helps if you keep that seam allowance facing one way when you fold it so it's not all twisted and doubled up. And then after I go press it again. So I'm going to fold this in here and press it and top stitch all around it on both of them again. And that'll finish off the handles. So pressing and top stitching all around. Okay, so here we have our strap. I've got two of them. And one of them is already attached here where it's supposed to go. This part of it will go where it's supposed to go on the other side, but I'm going to do one at a time so it doesn't distort it too much. So this is properly placed, and I'm just going to do a little cross box here. If you have hardware, you can use hardware, but I'm not going to because I'm trying to make this as economical as possible. This was a scrap piece of, I don't have very much of this left actually. This was a scrap piece, so I can get a laptop cover out of it. So I'm going to stick a little X box here and then put the other one on too. And also before we go, I used some Decavol on this side. I put it down with double-sided tape. I want to make sure that this is really reinforced when I sew it, so that my handles don't rip off or anything. Okay, we've got our handles on and they're reinforced properly, and I've done both sides. I still haven't rounded these corners, but that's okay, I can do that. Now let's move on to our zipper pocket. This is our lining, and we put our pocket facing right sides together with it, and we draw in our zipper box. This is going to be the same pretty much, unless you make a really small case, but for the size I've got now, just as long as you've got 1 inch to spare on each side, that's good. So this is going to be where my zipper sits inside. And also I gave measurements for coming down and coming down, which will stay consistent no matter what size you make. But the measurements coming in on the side here will change because sometimes we make a bigger laptop case than other times. So this is going to be good for me, for the size I've got. And we're going to sew around here, and then we're going to cut it open. So no matter what size case you're making, make sure you're centered. Make sure you're even on both sides. And this is the standard measurement that's in the pattern. So I've sewed around the zipper box. Now I can cut it open. And I can turn it inside, and I'm going to go press it before I attach my zipper. Now, I still don't have the circles here. What I'm going to do for the circles, it doesn't matter what you use really. I just want a rounded corner. I'm going to make one with this, and the rest of them I'm going to copy from this, so they're all the same. I'm going to do that for all my layers. So I'll make sure this one's like that too. Of course, there's a pattern piece in there for this, but sometimes I get lazy. So I'm going to round the corners on all the other pieces too before we go too much farther. Let's go to our iron and get this all flattened out so I can put my zipper in. Okay, this is pressed, and I also folded this up because it's going to have to fold up, and I pressed it. Right now let's leave it down, and we'll take our zipper. This one goes in here, and this one will go around the outside. So we'll put that aside. Oh, I should put the poles on. I think I'll put this little clock inside, and this little spaceman outside. Time and space. Sounds like Star Trek. Ha ha. Okay, let's put these on. So I'm going to get some double-sided tape, and I'm going to center this under here so that it's really nicely centered. And then I'm going to edge stitch around. First I need to find my double-sided tape, and then I'll edge stitch around this box, just sewing the zipper on. Okay, I have my double-sided tape on. I want to make sure I don't go too far over on the sides here. Yeah, that's good. And let's sew it down. Don't run over your teeth, and keep your zipper pull out of the way. We're just going to sew along the edge here. Now that's a done deal. Now let's sew the pocket up. If this is not going to be, if it's going to be in the way for a sewing machine, you can cut this off. because we are going to sew our lining together. And then that way we will have a real pocket. So I'm just going to sew that lining together, moving this out of the way. I don't have to sew the bottom because it's on a fold, just the 3 sides. And then after that we can go on to, oh, we should round all our pieces and get that foam on and put the other zipper and put it together. Okay, so where did I leave off? I did seal this up so it's a real pocket now. I rounded all my corners. The next thing I have to do is I'm going to baste this onto my front pieces so that I can have, there, it'll look really nice that way. You know, if there wasn't this pretty design on here, I might put a pocket in here too, a zipper pocket, but I really want to keep her face as it is. So I'm just going to baste around the edges of this, and then I think I can put my long zipper in. Okay, we have our padding put on. This is, it might not be within the seam allowance, but that's okay. We'll see. After it's all over with, I'll pick it out like just whatever's showing. So don't worry about that. I should probably clip this down so it stays out of the way. And we can line up the middles. I don't even know, do I have a front and back? I think the other one's going to be the front because more of her face shows. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to use this one. This will be the front. So I like my pulls coming from this side. And I have a teeny tiny little notch in there. I don't really like sticking notches in this tape because I don't know how it's put together, but lots of tapes I put little snips in. So I start from the center and I go this way, and we're going to bend it around our corner. And we're going to stop 1 inch from the end. Don't sew the last inch down. And same on this side. Don't sew the last inch down. And when I'm sewing, I might start from the center sewing and sew to the end. And leave an inch at the bottom. So I'm going to sew in this zipper on this piece, and don't sew to the bottom. Make sure you leave an inch. Okay, I've got the zipper sewed on, and I left my gap at the bottom. Now I'm going to sew the lining on. Match up the little center points here. So, but I will still leave the space at the bottom. We don't want to go all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to pin around and then just sew this on. And then we can move on to the next one. Okay, we've sewed our lining and one outer layer on. So now we can sew onto the other side of the zipper, the other lining and outer layer. It's just going to pop out like that. It'll look pretty good. Remember, we're supposed to have that space here. We'll tack those down later. So let's get this side on. Start with the outer layer. Ooh, I should pin this down again. And I do have a center mark on here somewhere. There it is. So I will pin around and sew the zipper on and make sure that I don't sew right to the ends. Leave the same amount of space open on this side too. Otherwise, it's coming along nicely. So I'll keep pinning and sewing, and I'll come back and show you how we stick the lining layer on afterwards. So we've got our inside and our outside, and we've got another outside, and we need the inside put on it. Of course, we can't put it on this, even though it's supposed to, whoops, even though it's supposed to look this way. We can't sew it on this way. We'll have to sew it on top of this. So where's my mark again? So that way it'll look like right sides together here and right sides together there. So I'm going to find my center mark, which has disappeared. Oh, there it is. And pin around again. And make sure I don't go past, we want to have some hanging off the end here. So I'll just sew around here. All our layers are sewed on right now. We've got our lining, and we've got our outer layers. Now we're going to sew the linings together and sew the outer layers together. I'm going to start with the outer layers. Sew as close to this zipper as you can without sewing on top of it. So this is going to stay out of the way for now. I'm just going to pin it up here so we don't touch it. We want to go close to the zipper, but we don't want to sew the zipper. So right from there. And all the way around to this side too. Before we start sewing, check to see if your zipper is unzipped, because you're going to want to get into your bag here. So I'm going to sew all the way around the bottom and seal it up. Okay, so I've done here to there, and I stopped here, right close to the zipper, but not sewing on top of the zipper. I also zigzagged it because I wanted to make sure it would stay. And now we can do the lining, and the lining gets sewn the same way from here, as close as you can. I'm just going to go around the corner though and stop, because I want some space to be able to turn it, because we do have to turn this. That's why we left the zipper open, so we can try and haul it out. So I'm just going to sew from the zipper down to around the curve, so we have the curve properly sewn in there. And then we can turn it. Now I've sewed here. I couldn't go up too much farther because my foot was in the way, but that's okay because we can poke the zipper through. I'll show you afterwards. And hand sew that spot. I press this seam allowance up because I want to know where it meets. I always like doing that. So now we get to turn it, and we'll see how fun that is. Now we can just sew this shut. I have a little tool right here, but before I sew it shut, I'm going to run that around the seam allowances all the way around the outside so that I can push them out a bit better. And then after we do this, we can shove it inside and we will be finished. And I'll show you this too after I get it all pushed inside. Okay, we're finished. Now, I pulled off all the loose threads. I was going to say, if this bothers you, because we did stick a zipper stop at the end of this zipper, but if you're worried about it pulling out, I usually just stick a couple of stitches, hand sewn, right here, just a couple of times, just to hold this zipper against the wall on the front here and on the back. And that'll take care of the hole. If your hole's too big, you can hand sew it shut just a little bit, or put the zipper down there and hand sew the zipper to it, and that will stop any problems you might have with the zipper coming loose. And same over on this side. I usually stick a couple of stitches in here and attach the wall to the zipper just to hold it. But it's up to you if you're happy with that gap there. And if the gap on the inside is too big, because of course the inside was harder to sew, I fold it and I hand sew it together too against the wall, just to hold it in place. Okay, so I'm just going to check for some hand sewing, and we're done. So how'd that go? Make sure you share what you've made. We'd love to see it. And don't forget to check everybody else's makes. You might find some new patterns that you're needing for this season. And I thank Cork and Copper Designs for the pattern. And of course, this one's my pattern, so I don't have to say thank you. And thank you for watching.